Let's be realistic. I know plenty about football. What do I know on the coaching level?
So is it a coincidence that Ray Lewis gets named to the top of the job after your announcement yesterday?
I don't see how they don't get their fucking asses kicked this week. It's Travis Hunter's award to lose. One, he's the media's darling. Norvell at least got them to 13-0. This guy needs Cialis.
Going for the corner. Touchdown! And the kick is, what is he looking at? What a hit! Ball's free! Houdini's in the house. Scooped up by the deck zone. Marcus Walker. You believe that? Unbelievable. They got blockers. Boise State is going to win the football game. Sneaks is going to throw. Watson. Touchdown.
Thank you for tuning in to BTN Sports, where we go beyond the numbers. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date with all our latest content and episodes. Welcome to BTN Sports. My name is Andy Hernandez, alongside my co-host, Nevin Shapiro. What's up, Mr. Shapiro?
How you doing, Andy? What's going on, brother?
A lot of news circulating with your name out there.
Yeah. Well, I saw the opportunity, and sometimes the timing's right. And when I saw FAU lose to Temple, I knew that was about as much time as Tom Herman had. He's on his way to a golf course on the University of Texas's long plan. He's getting paid for a while. Things are good. Even though living in Boca Raton's not terrible and getting paid a couple million like he was, but you know, another guy that should be sitting here with me.
So I figured I would change jackets. Last week I wore a very colorful jacket symbolizing a certain team that beat a certain team that you used to be a booster of.
Yeah.
But now I'm in my business suit, and I want to apply to be your president of your booster club at FAU.
Well, you already know, man. You know, I don't want to get accused of nepotism.
So is it
Who gives a fuck? You're in.
So is it a coincidence that Ray Lewis gets named to the top of the job after your announcement yesterday?
Yeah, funny how things work. You know, people really think it's a joke. But, like, I'm not even kidding. And the reason why I'm not kidding is, what do I know about – all right, let's be realistic. I know plenty about football. What do I know on the coaching level? Zero. I know personalities and I know people. I know I'd put together an insane staff, and it's a Wild West marketing business now. And I just know that I would outbag the next guy. And I'm still, even though I'm 55, I'm still current with the mindset and mentality of today's kids. At the end of the day, are you really coming to play for your program, or are you coming for the bag? I can make 1,000 examples. Well, just look at the portal. What's the portal about? About non-playing time in the bag, right? So now's my time. 20 years ago, I was playing hide the salami. Now I don't have to hide the salami.
So if you get into contract negotiations, are you going to ask for a golf cart so you can go across the street in it? Or
well, the great news is I could walk to work. So they don't have to give me a fuel per diem. And, you know, like I'd love it. I would do it for the challenge. Really, I would do it to show the Miami fans what a joke it really wasn't. You know what I mean? But
so you think by year 2 you make them a playoff team?
I know. I would say I would need 2 years, 2 full years. Maybe the second year I could do it, but I know it. I mean, at the end of the day, Andy, does it matter if you have a U on your helmet or an owl on your helmet? I mean, does it really matter? At the end of the day, it's who's in those uniforms.
Can't disagree.
And who's coaching them.
Yep.
Right? And who's coaching them.
So
I can tell you one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
They wouldn't have to pay me $80 million, and I wouldn't have 75 coaches.
So talking about coaches, short list, associate head coach, who's on it?
See, you really put me on the spot. You know, I'm really more into shock and awe. But if you're really going to put me, I have some guys that I've spoken to. I spoke to a few guys that said, we don't believe you'll do it, but knowing you, we do believe it. Right? And they're like, we won't come out publicly, but if you get it, will you take us? And I just, I mean, really, am I going to be hustling up? It's all going to be about the bag. And it wouldn't be me. It would be, I'd make sure the right people are in place to back the program. Whether it was here, it just makes sense here because I'm a rock's throw away. You know what I mean? And you're in the breeding ground. Lane Kiffin did amazing here. Now, I'm certainly not comparing myself to Lane Kiffin as a football coach, but he also didn't have the perks and benefits of what the NIL situation is today. Right? So I think it would take 2 years. Well, look, Indiana did it in 1 year. Same year. They just hired Kirk Cignetti. Mm-hmm. So why does it take someone 5 years? You got to gut out come on, man. You know where I stand on this. We've spoken plenty of it off camera. Yeah. And, if you can just keep getting away with, buying time and patience, I'd make sure I scheduled a Boise State type schedule or one of these type schedules, and we'd cruise right through whatever conference they're in right now. I don't even remember what they're in. The AAC. I don't even remember. I don't even know what. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. Schedule the games. I know I could take some 5 stars, at least 7 to 10 5 stars. Everyone would be at least a 4-star for the most part. Maybe there'd be some 3 stars under the radar that if you're a 3-star in South Florida, you're really a 4-star somewhere else. And we'd compete, and the whole thing would be just let's get to the playoff, and and that's it. We would become our own story. Going on out there right now. I've done it in the past. While it wasn't legal, now it's legal. That's it.
What would you say about Tom Herman and the fall off he's had? This guy coached at Houston. Houston was actually pretty good. Actually, they beat FSU in one of the Chick-fil-A bowls. I remember he beat the shit out of them. And then he ends up getting the job at Texas, fails there miserably, and then he goes to FAU. But this guy was anointed like one of the best coaches in the country. Yeah. Now this guy's getting kicked out of FAU.
So let me give you a good analogy of that question, which is a great question. We're in a world that's continued to evolve into who's hot now and instant gratification, which is going to be a little bit of our theme today when I get into discussing Billy Napier and the Gator situation, which I was not critical, but really being told internally, and I think everyone knows what was coming for him, but not to switch the subject matter, but it's relevant to that question. And so people just want instant gratification, and nobody wants to let somebody put their DNA into a program. So Tom Herman was very hot because Ohio State's offense was very hot at that time, right? So is it a real good litmus test about what kind of game coach he is or what kind of head coach he would be? No, but he became that hot guy. So who's a perfect analogy? Well, I'm going to give you a guy that I know personally I watched go through a similar situation. That was Charlie Strong. So in my situation for Miami, when I got locked up, there were a number of guys committed to Miami. And the head recruiter at that time for Miami, I won't mention his name, but you research it, you'll figure out who it is. When I got locked up, he ended up going to Texas under Louisville rather, under Charlie Strong. And at that time, he took all the Miami kids with him, which was a good move, right? So Charlie Strong ended up beating Florida. Louisville ended up beating Florida in that Sugar Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater. Mm-hmm. And he parlayed really one good season into a absolute bank robbery of Texas. Right? So Texas seems to be the springboard of going after the hot guy, overpaying him. They land somewhere else, and they're just living on the annuity of where they just left. Exact example of your question. Where's Charlie Strong today? Same place Tom Herman is. Looking good, Billy Ray.
Yeah.
Feeling good, Lewis. Collecting checks from Texas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? How's that for an answer? It's
Yeah.
spot on.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
It is. Yeah, and that's the self-gratification, and we got to win today, but you don't let a guy build the program. And some good coaches get left out on the street sometimes. Not saying Tom Herman's a good coach or Charlie Strong. I think a lot of their situation masked truly their ability. And we've talked about this before. There's certain guys that are coordinator recruiters, but they're not made to be a head coach.
Look, Randy Shannon was a good example too.
Yep.
You know, I mean, forget whatever my relationship is with him, this and that. He was a hell of a recruit. He was a hell of a coordinator. You know, especially in that 2001 team, and then when you know, Sean Taylor and Antrell and those guys came in to the U. You know, Miami is very heavy up front defensively, and he protected that backside, which is, you know, I mean, you know, so that's another good example. Some guys are just really great coordinators. They just don't make for great head coaches. You know, I never thought Butch Davis was an amazing game coach. I never did. He was just an unbelievable eye for talent. Mm-hmm. And a great coordinator at his spot. I mean, that's going back some time now, of course, but you know, you see it all over the place. And you know, how do you build continuity with a program? Which now that you mentioned it, can I mention what I wanted to talk about with regards to Billy Napier? Only because it fits.
Yeah, go ahead.
It fits the narrative. So I got a lot. You and I both know, you being an FSU guy, me being we hate the Gators, mm-hmm. right? I mean, let's not pander about it. We hate them, and their fans, like they're bougie. We know.
Yo. Vibe. Your mic is gonna get cut off shortly.
So there's no sensitivity. There's no crying in baseball. Okay, so anyway, so Billy Napier deserves just so much credit, for writing that situation. And the athletic director plays right into your point. He stuck by him. And that vote of confidence, man, they've performed. You pointed out to me the other day, and I didn't realize it, they should have beaten Tennessee. They really should have beaten Tennessee. They kicked Kentucky's ass. They kicked Central Florida's ass. They were in a real game with Georgia, competitive. And I'm not saying they would have won, but they were in a fourth quarter game with Georgia. With Lagway, they were in the game, and you know, a muff punt. Things happen, right? You never know. They beat LSU's brains in, right? And Texas, you know, you got to give them a pass for that because they were shot and they had a third string quarterback. But man, this guy's going to finish more than likely 6-6. I think Ole Miss beats them this week because they spent so much energy on that game last week, and it's just hard to get up. But they're still 18, 19-year-old kids, 20-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. And there's an emotional toll. And I was really close to making Ole Miss a pick, because I just think it's the situation. Ole Miss had the week off. Florida's coming off a big emotional win. And if they do lose to Ole Miss, which Vegas seems to think they will, it's not a great embarrassment, and they'll more than likely beat Florida State and finish 6-6 and go to a bowl game. So I think Billy Napier deserves just a ton of credit. DJ Lagway is insane. He's got unbelievable upside. He's a star. He's a younger Cam Ward, right? Who came in a lot more heralded than what Cam Ward did coming out of.
He's bigger. He's a little bigger than him.
He's like 6'4", I think.
Yeah, 6'4".
He just that pass he threw standing still and taking a shot that they either scored on or got down to the one. NFL type throw. You don't coach that. You just either got it or you don't. And anyway, the whole point was Billy Napier, and I think he's done an incredible job. And it's a public apology to him for trash canning him. And it was heading for Lane Kiffin's audition next week. Mm-hmm. And now I think that's cooled off. And you know, that's another example of what we opened the show with coaching staffs and this and that. And, you know, like the guy stood in there with him, the athletic director, the AD stood in there with him. Yeah. And he's proved them to be, at this point, right. Mm-hmm. And you know, Butch Davis was getting his lunch handed to him early on at the U. You know, coming off probation and whatever. And, you know, look what, you know, they became a juggernaut, you know. So I'm not saying Florida's going to become a juggernaut, but they got a nice nucleus in place right now for that guy standing in there with him.
So I went to that West Broward practice I told you about, and actually Florida was there. Their head recruiter, I forgot his name, and the head coach is my friend, and he introduced me to him. And they were there to see a kid, that wide receiver I told you about, 4-star.
Yeah, Josh Moore.
Yeah, Josh Moore. Him. Kid's a stud too, freak. I think he's gonna end up. I think he chose Florida, but I'm not sure. But the guy
and then he withdrew.
Yeah, he withdrew and went to Georgia, right?
He decommitted. And I think he either committed to Miami or Miami's the front runner. But like, you know how this NIL goes. It's not over.
Right. He didn't want to go to Miami, and I know that for a fact. Yeah. The family didn't like, didn't like the situation.
Whatever,
whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But I was talking to the head recruiter, and I asked him straight out, what are your thoughts on Lagua? He's like, this kid's the real deal. He's going to change the program. And, they all say that, right, about a kid. But he had this look like, this kid's the real deal. This kid's going to turn this thing. Yeah. Yep.
He is. I mean, they let me tell you, man, they look, I mean, sometimes you just got to give credit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I saw Booger McFarland talk about it, who I happen to like a lot and respect his opinion. And he said, man, the guy just rolled up his sleeves and went to work. Just getting lambasted. They were putting his house up for sale, the whole thing. And, that's just stupid pressure. And these are kids that are putting this pressure on. It's fan bases. You know what it is. You were close to that Florida State program for a long time. So, you know how it gets. You guys got a little bit of a pass because Bobby Bowden was looked at like, grandpa and like coddled. But, he also earned whatever stay, extended stay he had.
Sure.
God rest his soul,
Yeah.
But yeah, so, these coaches, like I remember Indiana, the head coach, Tom Allen, they were the talk of the town. He was 6-2. Indiana's never had a winning team, but now he's gone. Right? Now this guy's no one even remembers him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the carousel, and not everybody's going to become Nick Saban and build a dynasty. It's not the reality.
But that's the expectation of the fan base.
Yeah, and I get it, but it's just not practical and it's not realistic.
No, it isn't.
And which is a good segue into my next thing. The ACC, which we've had some extensive dialogue about. And speaking of coaches, I was going to just start with the ACC in general. Mm-hmm. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start with the coaching since we're on the coaching topic. I'm watching the Clemson-Pitt game, and I really think time is passing Dabo Swinney by. Nothing but respect for him. He's won 2 national titles for a program that hadn't won anything since 1981 under Danny Ford back when. And certainly you don't push a guy out like that. But if you don't change with the times, you get cashed out. And this guy is not I watched Clemson. They're a very average team. They're just an average team. I mean, to say you're a top 20 team doesn't mean you're a great team, right? If you're in that top 12, 13, I guess you're in the conversation now because the playoffs are 12 teams. But to be a top 20 team is not like the back of the top 20 or top 22, 20. Doesn't say much. And I see Clemson just like that. Pittsburgh really should have beat them. It was like sort of a broken play, great call with the guy. But this guy doesn't want to get involved in the NIL. And, that rah-rah shit's going to take you so far in today's landscape. It just is. And I think he's earned the right to get as much time as he needs. But you got to come correct and get with the times.
Well, there's going to be a come to Jesus moment at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's here.
Yeah.
I think it's here.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
He's going to have to play ball with all the other kids, right? The money, whatever.
If he wants to continue coaching in college football, because Clemson's going to put the pressure on him, and he's either going to comply or he's not, then he's going to get fired. Who else is going to hire him? He's still a young guy. He's in his mid-50s. Lazo, how old is Dabo Swinney?
I mean, he's got to be in his late 40s to very, very early 50s. Late 40s, I would guess.
Dabo
48,
Sweeney is
52.
55 years old.
Mid-50s, yeah. Yeah. He's been around for a minute.
Yeah. So, he's not that young whippersnapper that came in jumping up and down in the snap. He may still have that energy, but if you gotta be self-aware,
right?
What it is,
And he was always going to be the anointed one going to Alabama, right? That was always talked about, after Saban.
That was,
that ship has sailed, I think.
Oh, that's way gone.
Yep.
They got a lot invested in Kalen DeBoer, and who wants to be that next guy to follow Saban? But someone had to be it, and they're going to the playoffs more than likely now. Mm-hmm. Alabama, I think it's safe to say they got an excellent chance. But yeah, I just wanted to start off on the Dabo Sweeney thing. Like, I just watch it, and like you have to come to terms with, you got to be self-aware of what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
These kids, it's one thing, school pride and the fight song and all this. Yeah, show me the money, right? That's what it is. I mean, if I'm a kid's parent, that's what I'm saying. My first offer is, all right, where are we starting? That's going to determine if you're even in this conversation or not.
Right.
Where are we starting? And I'm sure there's many parents around the country that are starting with that question. What's your beginning number? NCAA can thank themselves for this situation, which I won't get into. We could do a sideshow on that. But anyway, sticking with the ACC. So I want to use the word of the day. I've already previewed it to you. The word of the day is basura. Straight garbage. That conference is an embarrassment. I saw Rhett Lashley say they've got a winning record against the SEC. Well, I had to go fact check the way I see all my fans out there fact check me. And I could tell you one thing. I don't see any wins over a Mississippi, Texas, Alabama,
Funny you say
Georgia, Tennessee, or who else? Who am I missing?
I got to show you the messages on my WhatsApp group with my friends. You know who you are because you watch the show. And they said, well, there's all this talk about the SEC and look at their record against other conferences. They're being mauled. So I listed all those teams that tell me who's mauled them. And the only one that's beat anyone in the SEC is Notre Dame when they went to Texas A&M.
Right, 23-13. By the way, they're a drive-by participant to the ACC.
Correct.
They're not an official team. They don't even play a conference
So the response I got? Silence.
Oh, that's... I mean, if you're going to listen, it's one thing to be a diehard. I mean, that's okay. You're a fanatic.
Sure.
Right? But just be honest. Paul Feinbaum, I happened to see this morning on my ESPN app, for context. Like, we're not trying to say we're bigger than ESPN as doing our podcast, but you would say it's probably the biggest outlet, right? Okay. Paul Feinbaum said, how dare Indiana, I forgot, I don't want to quote it exactly. How dare Indiana, Penn State, Miami, and I think it was Boise, think they could possibly beat Georgia. Is he not correct? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
So if I tell you this opponent record, 41-61, this is a top 5 team. What team do you think has played that schedule?
Top 5 team? Indiana.
Ding, ding, ding.
I mean, listen, I don't see how they don't get their fucking asses kicked this weekend. I've been on Indiana for 5 weeks. Have I not?
Yeah.
Have I not?
Yeah. Yeah.
I said Indiana. No one's talking about him. Lazo, all he has to do is pull the tapes. We've spoken about it, right? Now, that doesn't mean I think they're great. I just said they'd find themselves in a position. How do you take an ACC team with one loss? Let's be honest. Miami fan or not Miami fan, how do you take a one-loss ACC team? SMU or Miami wins the championship. Are they better than Georgia? Are they better than Tennessee? Are they better than Ole Miss or Alabama? Come on, man. Like, just be honest.
They're not.
Like, they're going to get in. They're going to get in by default. Now, if had Miami stayed undefeated, They have a lot to say because they're unblemished at that point. But the ACC, it sucks. It sucks. It fucking sucks. I watched SMU last week. Boston College gave them all they wanted. And yeah, they do have a lot of speed, SMU. Most of that speed comes from South Florida because Rhett Lashley brought those kids over, Cheney and Jalen Knight, even though Knighton's out, brought them from South Florida. So yeah, SMU has some speed, and I'm listening to Louis Riddick do the game, and I'm thinking to myself, man, who's paying him to pump up SMU? They're okay.
Network.
They're okay, but Miami should handle it. If Miami's got any kind of if Miami thinks they're like that, they will absolutely rock and roll SMU. That's just how I feel. And I said that game against Syracuse, and I'm not the only one to say it. Kirk Herbstreit just said it Saturday. So we taped our show last Tuesday, right? Or Monday, or whenever we taped it, and Herbstreit said it Saturday. After I had said it, not saying he was quoting me, but he sees the same thing I see. There's no gifts for them when you go on the road and you lose to a Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Georgia Tech's all right. Look at their schedule. Let's not get into it and waste the viewers' time. They're not world beaters. You know what I mean? And so just the ACC's garbage. One team's going in. There's no way two teams are going in.
No.
If SMU should happen to beat Miami, if that's who ends up playing, Miami's not going in with 2 losses. I'm sorry. They're just not. And they don't deserve to be in with 2 losses. Let's be real. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
And if Miami wins, SMU certainly doesn't belong in. So is it heavy SEC? It should be. The SEC commissioner has every right to scream all he wants because that conference is loaded, man. It is just loaded.
So if the ACC is basura,
then
what the hell do you call the Big 12?
You need 2 garbage bags. Garbage.
All right, so I'm going to give you another opponent record. 58-62. I eliminated one team because it shouldn't count. It was at the beginning of the season, and they almost lost to them at home. That team's 10-1, playing in I don't even know where they're playing at. I couldn't even name you the conference. Okay, almost went into their home and beat them. If I gave you that record, who do you think it is? And by the way, it's a top 20 team.
Colorado.
Boom.
Yeah, they got handled by Nebraska really bad. And, you'll see the pick I have this week. I mean, you give Deion Sanders credit, but, it's only because they were such a dumpster fire last year. Does he look that much better this year?
It's fraudulent. And you know what? When the Pac-12 dissolved, I said, oh, here we go. He's going to win a few games in the Big 12. And again, he's going to get anointed as the best coach in college football. And what a hell of a job he's done. And it's fool's gold. And here's one thing I want you to know, or one stat, or whatever you want to call it. Nebraska beat the crap out of Colorado at home. Nebraska went to Indiana and got their asses beaten. Smashed.
Yeah. We had dismissed Iowa State. Remember, I called them a fraud, and they are. But now they're back in it by accident. It's safe to say, and we had our production meeting, we discussed it, right? So you can't dismiss anybody in that conference yet. It's going to come down to the very last game of the season, meaning the conference championship last game. That last game, because someone's got to get in, but somebody's going to get a free pass playing them. I think
Kansas, and you're right, because we talked about this, and as soon as I saw the line, I said, hold on, Kansas is going to beat Colorado.
They're one of my picks. Strictly on that. Not to mention they've been hot. This kid, Jalen Daniels, Jalen Daniels, I think is his name. Not Jalen.
The quarterback. Jalen, the quarterback. Yep.
There were issues throughout the year. I don't know, whatever it was, but man, they got their game together. They smashed Iowa State. They went out and beat BYU, which I was about to make a pick last week, but then they became too sexy, and when a game becomes too sexy,
Jalen Daniels,
yeah. and he's been a difference maker. And I think they beat Colorado, and I think that game flies over the total. I didn't make it a pick, but I just think shootout.
And let me tell you, they've played everyone very, very closely. Their losses, they are a 6-loss team, but except TCU, they lost 38-27. But they lost on the road by 4 points to Arizona State. Okay, Houston, they beat the shit out of. Kansas State, they lost at Kansas State by 2 points. The same Kansas State that went and beat Colorado. Okay, and then Kansas.
They should have beat Kansas State too. I remember I was watching that game.
Yeah, and then they beat the crap out of Iowa State by 11. Then they beat BYU on the road. That's not an easy game.
No,
17-13.
And by the way, they were up against Iowa State by like 30-something points.
Correct.
I mean, they blasted them. That game wasn't as close as the 11-point final. Yep. They were up like 48-20 on it. They were up big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think they this week I think they're live, man. I think they're live.
Yeah.
And I think they get Colorado this week. I really do, and really more so based on the number. If it would have been Colorado by 6, I would have said, you know what, Colorado probably squeaks it. But because that number is 2.5, Vegas is saying this should be a pick'em game.
Agreed.
That's how I read. That's how I read.
Yeah, people are going to jump all over Colorado. The average betting public is going to jump all over Colorado. Oh, wow.
Well, I hope they jump. I hope they jump on them to 3.5.
Yeah, it went up to 3. I haven't seen a 3.5. Now it's back down to 2.5. So
yeah, that resistance is a big number. But if it should go to 3.5, man, you got to take Kansas. You just have to. But yeah, that conference is another shit conference. They're gonna steal a bid from an SEC team. And I hate to be like pro SEC. It's not like I'm Mr. SEC, but you just got to be realistic. How would these teams do in that conference?
Agreed.
I mean, that and when Paul Feinbaum makes that argument, I'm not the biggest Paul Feinbaum fan, but when he makes that argument, man, he's dead on.
Mm-hmm.
He's on point.
Yep.
I saw just switching conferences for a second. I was watching the Oregon game, a little bit of it, because I thought they'd roll. The line sort of told you it'd be one of those wanky games, right? They could either beat them like 38-10, or it was going to be what it turned out to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did watch them. They're a very complete team, Oregon, but by no way, shape, or form are they a world beater and an odds-on favorite to win the whole thing. Just not. I think it's wide open, and it's really going to come down to the matchups in that playoff. I can't even make if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't even make a pick right now. I would, I guess. If you said you have to pick one, I'd pick one, but I picked the team that whoever's in the 5 spot is who I pick. That's who I pick.
Well, I told you a couple weeks ago that's going to probably be the highest odds to win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and that would be my position. And so I looked at the games. I circled. We did it, a week ago. I said there were 11 games left that really matter. Going back to last week, this week, and next week, and I was pretty close. Maybe 1 or 2 games now become games, like that Iowa State at Kansas State at Iowa State the next week. Potentially, I thought it was over, but now Iowa State's still alive because BYU's got to play Arizona State this week. So I had called weeks ago BYU would go down to Utah or Arizona State. They should have went down to Utah, but Kansas got them. So now their desperation is far greater for this week against Arizona State. So where if BYU would have been coming in undefeated, I think Arizona State would have been a lock. Now there's a different level of urgency, and it's a toss-up of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the line is so low makes me just not want to go near it and just see what happens and how it ends up. But someone's going to get eliminated from that game, from that conference, right? And so it's exciting. Someone's got to go. Like the ACC should play the Big 12. The champion from each should play for an automatic bid.
Sure.
Because they're stealing a bid from someone, right? I mean, right? So maybe next year the conferences will be better, and so you'd have to come back to the real format. But for this year, the ACC champ should play the Big 12 champ. Winner goes to the playoff because someone's stealing a spot from someone. that well put?
Yep. I agree. So last week you went 8-2 with your picks. I did want to mention before we get into your picks that Georgia-Tennessee game, and that was like the big game of the week. And that game went exactly how we said it was going to go.
Yeah.
31-10 we called, just by the line. Yeah. And they went 33-17.
31-17. Yeah. So we had under 48.5. The line, of course, moved. So, when I put out my picks, it's based on the current line. So if it shifts and goes down, if you happen to follow for that reason, you got to monitor. It's like, it's a stock, man. You buy it, quarter points matter, half points matter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, that game went sort of how I thought it would. Tennessee stayed in it a lot tougher than maybe I thought they would in the first half. They withstood the storm. I think they were winning at halftime, or it was real close. But Georgia was playing for their life, and they found their way to the other end. Georgia's come back to the pack for me as far as being a team that can win it. Certainly not an overwhelming favorite. I don't think there is an overwhelming favorite. But they got as good of a chance as anyone. Their offense is suspect. I've said it from the time we started doing our podcast. Their offense is suspect, right? It's very suspect. I've seen them have 2 explosive halves this year. Last week, second half,
Alabama,
and the second half against Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them have 2 explosive halves offensively. They've not put together a complete offensive show. When they played Texas, they weren't dominant offensively. They were dominant defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the difference in that game. So Georgia is a team that can win it all. They're certainly not an overwhelming favorite. They're in there with the pack. And they're not even guaranteed a spot as of now, even though I don't see them losing. They're not going to lose to Georgia Tech. So, that SEC championship game is going to be a determining factor. Someone's going to have to play that extra game. And I think the team that doesn't actually gets a pass by not having to.
We've been saying that. Yeah.
That's really how I see that. And I still hold true on my prediction that I see A&M beating Texas the last game of the season. That being said, here comes the landmine for A&M this week. And nobody's talking about Auburn. And that number is so suspect that I had to make Auburn a pick. It is a home game on a Saturday night for Auburn. They have been just an embarrassment. Hugh Freeze is borderline on the hot seat, if not hot, right? And that number tells me Auburn's a play. And the A&M coach said, we're looking forward to Texas, and he said it by accident. Whether it was a Freudian slip or not, it really expressed how he feels, that Auburn's not in their way. And if I'm Auburn, I'm looking at them the same way South Carolina looked at them. Home game, they could salvage a season with a win like this. That being said, we'll be right back on Texas A&M next week against Texas, because that's how it goes, right? We're on one team one week, and the next week, because there's just no free money in these, on the road in college football.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's just not. And there's a few games. It's not the greatest card, but there's a few games that could still tilt the rankings. One other coach that I do want to mention, unrelated to SEC, ACC, which we've been talking, and the Big 12, and that is Lincoln Riley from USC. I made a note for me. I wanted to mention it. I believe now that USC may be able to get out of that contract looking not so bad for where the prices have gone for college coaches. So when they signed him away from Oklahoma, and there was rumored talk that he was going to go to LSU to be the coach, and then USC swept in there and took him away, I think that guy is, you asked me a few weeks ago, who's in your witness protection program? He's number one. Norvell at least got them to 13-0 and showed a real pulse. This guy needs Cialis. Yo, he's lame. He's limp, man.
Needs 100 milligrams, 50.
Whatever it takes, man. I mean, he is just, what a disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, what a disappointment. And that being said, I think he can salvage his face by beating Notre Dame next week, which I've circled all year. And I just don't know if they can. They've lost commitments. They picked up. You just shouldn't be 5-6 at USC. I don't care who's coaching. I don't care who's coaching and if there's an NIL landscape or not. And for that kind of money, Andy, you've been a successful businessman. If your CEO was showing numbers like he's showing, would he be fired or she be fired?
Yeah, correct.
For that money?
Mm-hmm.
See you later. That's it. And I think they, from a business standpoint, they could get out of that contract cheap now. Pay him off, whatever is buyout. See you later, rather than stay with him, because whatever he's doing, it's not working. But anyway, that's enough of the coaching stuff, from my end. I had to make that point because I was watching them and they were struggling and they barely got by Nebraska, who's terrible.
So let's get into your week 13 picks.
Yeah. So there's a few games. So Ohio State is my first pick, and that may be an obvious one. I don't know, but I see it went up to 13.5. When I had put it out for us, it was -12.
Yes, 13.
I don't like it if it goes past 14 for obvious reasons. But I just really think Indiana is going to come to reality. And they've been a great story. But if Ohio State is what everyone thinks they are or could be, they're going to absolutely bludgeon this team. And should. Okay? It's at home. Their defense they got who knows how many first-round picks on that defense. From an NFL standpoint, they're loaded.
That Caleb Downs kid is unbelievable.
He's great, man. Obviously offensively, they got two really good running backs, maybe great even, Travion Henderson and Keyshawn Judkins, Enigma and Jeremiah Smith. And then the receivers are loaded. Quarterback, I've always said suspect. He's been good. He's been better than average.
Decent.
But he hasn't been great. And that's probably the weakest part of their team. They should kill Indiana. They should kill Indiana. Now, if it's a touchdown game, Indiana may have an argument that, like, hey, we belong in the playoffs. We stood up. We stood tall. I just see them getting blown out, 38-10, something like that, 34-10. That's how I see it. I just think this is a game they just put this Indiana story to sleep. Next pick. This is one that, how have I done this year? With honor against Miami.
Yeah, you've been on.
I don't think I've lost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've lost, right? This is a Mario Cristobal special. He gets the flex. Coming off a loss, playing a garbage team at home. I think they absolutely Watusi this team. Smash them. I would say the over. I'm not going to make the over pick. But the only reason I would say the over is because Miami, their team total's got to be, I'm setting it at 54.5. They should get 55 against Wake Forest, which means you only need 2 scores, which is certainly possible against that Miami defense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Miami's a great pick this week. I think they crush this team. It opened at 23. It's 25 now. I don't even know what it is. Whatever it is, it don't matter. They should crush this team. Next pick, I took TCU. I don't typically like laying 11 points with TCU or 11.5. But Arizona's been so piss poor, so bad. And when I saw UCF go through Arizona for like 30 to 40 points, and the only reason we didn't take UCF that game is because we were so disappointed about UCF against BYU the week earlier. But I said to you, I liked UCF. You're like, man, after they just lost to BYU, and you got me off that pick, but they crushed Arizona. Well, that's the Arizona I anticipate showing up. And for that reason, I like TCU laying 11.5. I'm not a big TCU fan, but it's more of a play against Arizona and their inability to travel on the road. Next pick, I got Kansas. I just think that line says Kansas. They've been playing great ball for 3 weeks now. Colorado's the roar. Everyone's on them. And that's when you go against them.
Agreed.
The next pick, I'd say the same thing. Auburn. Just type in the same storyline. A&M, everyone's on them. Boom. Auburn sneaks in. This is a perfect look-ahead spot. If ever Hugh Freeze was going to get his team up, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. And the last play, as far as the lines go, is Washington State. When Air Force shuts you out 28-0, I think you need more than 1 or 2 couch sessions per week. Oregon State got shut out by Air Force. Washington State should just smoke them. They're bad. They lost Jonathan Smith, the head coach. He went to Michigan State, and they're just, Martinez transferred out. They lost their quarterback. They're just not a good team. And it's not so much a play on Washington State as much as it is against Oregon State. So those are 6 picks I have on the regular. By the way, I did go 8-2 last week, and I would not have been. One of my 2 losses was Texas, and had I known had we done that show later in the week, I would not have had Texas. I got to take the L, but I didn't realize the depths of that rivalry. I forgot, and I wouldn't have had them, but I did. So 8-2 was still a great week. My totals, and these numbers were based on when we put these together. But Michigan Northwestern, first team to score wins. Under 38. I don't know what it is, but it may take a 3-run homer in the 9th. And that game's going under. North Texas, East Carolina.
Fuck, stop.
I know. I know, man. I know. It's psychological for you. I got it. But North Texas, East Carolina over.
If it goes over, I swear. What's the over under in that game?
73.5.
Oh my God.
They're not playing the Steel Curtain defensive army. They're playing East Carolina.
I'm about to
over 73.5. Fresno State.
And by the way, just to let the audience know, we do the preview. I guess I didn't pay attention to North Texas. This is like a real reaction. This is just not me making it up. I fucking hate North Texas. And I hate the quarterback. Whatever the fuck is. What's his name, Lazo? I need to get this kid's name. And I don't do this to college players because I don't believe in shitting on college players. But this kid. Something different.
Jabroni.
Yeah, Chandler Morris.
Chandler Morris.
Yeah, Chandler Morris is for Mean Green, North Texas.
If I could give you a quick segue, unrelated to the North Texas emotional reaction you have.
Sure.
When you're in prison, they take you on buses. Sometimes you don't fly, you go on buses. And I was always a big stadium fan. So when I was locked up in chains and we were going on bus to bus, city to city, like in some unbelievable parts, we passed North Texas. And they had a picture of Mean Joe Green, well, I'm a big Steeler fan, in front of the stadium. And as we're driving by, and I'm like, in a surreal moment, I said, is that North Texas? Man, I've bet on them so many times, I never knew where they were.
Is that a true story?
I don't lie, Andy. Anyway, so
going.
North Texas and East Carolina over 73.5. Two teams with just horrible defenses. Fresno State, Colorado State under. It was 47. There's no points in that game coming. I think it's down to 45.5 now. So when we started, it was 47. Obviously 45 becomes a crucial number because 24-21 gets you beat. The next total is Air Force Nevada. It was 45. Now I see it's 44.5. It doesn't get me off of it, but if it goes under 43, I wouldn't take it. But I do like that game under because there's no offense. Air Force played the game of the year for themselves, and they scored 28 last week. And there is one total I wanted to add that Lazo didn't put on our ticker, but I want to just put an asterisk and mention it. And that is Utah State and San Diego State under 61. It was 62. And the reason being is Utah State weekly scores a lot of points. A lot. And they give up a lot. Like a cheap rod. They give it up. But San Diego State can't score.
I saw that first.
And they can't push that to 61. So I'm making that an additional pick, and I'm sorry, Lazo, to have to add that to the ticker if you're able to or not.
Gotcha.
But it's solid. It's a solid pick.
Yeah, we'll add it in. We'll add it in.
I got you.
And that's what I have for the picks. 6 and 5. 6 straight picks with the line and 5 over-unders.
What do you think Chandler Morris is doing right now?
Well, I got edited out on my last response, so I guess I got to plead the fifth.
All right, let's finish up with the Heisman.
Yeah, I mean the Heisman is. I really hate to eliminate Cam Ward because he's been my pick all year. And of course, by not playing last week, that hurts him because he's just not visible. But he could have an amazing game. I would expect he would against Wake Forest. I think he has a chance to put up big numbers against Syracuse, and then he's going to have that chance in the ACC championship more than likely. But the truth of the matter is it's Travis Hunter's award to lose, and it's for a number of factors. One, he's the media's darling right now. He's playing both ways. We've had the conversation, so we don't want to bore the audience. He's first round, both sides of the ball.
I think he's the first pick, but
maybe. And I also wanted to add a point to him. I think we spoke about it earlier off camera. Dion, who I will give him credit for. Dion, I think there's been players over the last 20 years that could have played both ways to this level of snaps. But I don't think the coaches were ready to allow something like that. I think Dion, in a revolutionary way, maybe it was to even get the kid to come, is open-minded enough to say, you know what, I probably could have done it myself back then. I'm going to let this kid do it. And I think Dion being his coach plays a lot into the fact that he can do a dual role. And that's a nod. That's a nod to Dion for giving him that opportunity and having that belief in him. I think it could have been done by someone else along the way. I don't have that person who I would say would be. But I think it could have been done. But Dion, I think, was open-minded enough because he had that type of confidence in himself as a player that he probably saw that same type of ability in this kid and gave him that chance.
Sure.
And but he's the media's darling and deserving of it.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say he's the front runner for those reasons.
Yeah.
Plus, performance as well.
I love him. I think he's the best player in America. I told you how I feel
he's
about
really,
him.
yeah, he's really talented. He's great, and and he seems like a really nice kid too.
Yeah, he is.
To be honest.
Yeah.
You know, I watched some of his interviews. I think he's getting married already, or he's about to be married, and he's got his head on right, and I like that, and he's the front runner. He's the front runner. They say Ashton Jonty from Boise is second based on what the odds in Vegas say. Do I think he's the second best player in America, or even the best player in America? His stats are going to say that, but I don't think he's played in an insane type conference. He did have a great game against Oregon, so that says plenty. I just can't. It's hard for me to put him in front of Cam Ward. That's just me, not because of Miami bias. Just like Cam Ward's been amazing, man. He's really been the difference of 4 losses for Miami. He has, right? We talk about it every week. People can agree or not agree, but I think it's
very evident. It's very evident. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would say Travis Hunter 1, Cam Ward 2, Ashton Genty 3, Dylan Gabriel 4. No 5th pick. Those 4.
Those are the 4. Got it.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to touch on before we sign off here, and we didn't touch on it. Army, Notre Dame, I believe they're playing this at Yankee Stadium. Army's undefeated. Notre Dame's a 14.5 point favorite. Over-under's 44.5. How do you see that game playing out?
Dead under. And if Army covers, it's going to be it's not going to be a pretty game to watch. And Notre Dame's defense is going to stifle them. I mean, I would bet that under. Honestly, I should have made that a pick because I don't see Army scoring on them. I could see that game being 17-3, like right at the number. Army probably covering. But if they cover by that. And they're not going to win. They're not going to win. Like they're not going to win. 0 chance that they're going to win that game. And it's the 0 chance. But that's an under, dead under. That game's what you think it is. If you close your eyes, that's what the game's going to look like.
So I watched Army against North Texas. I was so bored watching them play. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's just thank God that they protect us and they're serving, and I respect the hell out of the service schools, and like I said, we'll never bet against them during Veterans Weekend. We got straight annihilated, and I think that came from God. Well,
I gave you my response to that last week.
Yeah.
As far as don't bet against Temple on Rosh Hashanah.
I know.
So I'm going to tell you also who's going to respect Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Is Tom Herman.
All right, man. Hopefully you get a call from FAU.
They retired him.
They did. And hopefully you get a call from FAU and they have a conversation and ring, ring.
Listen, you get to leave media. You'll have a new job.
Oh. What would be his position on your staff?
What do you mean? What did you name yourself already?
President of the Booster Club.
Oh, yeah, right. Lazo, you're going to be the team mascot. You're going to be throwing toilet paper at everybody.
I got you.
Where's Petey?
I would look good in an owl suit.
Is Petey stuck in the garbage bag? Where is he?
Yeah, Petey's in front of FIU or FAU right now.
Right now with picket signs.
With picket signs, trying to get you the job.
Petey, you know where Petey is? Petey's trying to get me to give him a 6-year of scholarship eligibility if I take the job at FAU.
Make him the starting quarterback.
Yeah,
backup.
Yeah, that's a real. Hey, listen. You guys know that was a serious inquiry.
I know. I mean, I saw the letter. I saw the letter you sent out.
You know what I mean?
I saw the post. I mean, it's incredible. I didn't know you had this type of capability.
Someone said to me, so my neighbor who's like, he's like my Kramer from Seinfeld, right? So
just walks into your house.
Just walks in. He's like a cat that I fed. He just won't leave me alone. Anyway. So he says,
"Hey, Steve."
Like he comes over and he says, "You think they'd hire a felon?" And I said, "You got some nerve, man. Who did you just vote on?"
I like that. There it is. There it is.
You know what I'm saying? So on that note, if he's got 34 and I only got one felony, listen, man, why don't I deserve a chance? He's running the country. I'm running the Owls.
There's the difference.
Listen, I'm going to close this show with "Living La Vida Loca" in Boca.
Going for the corner. Touchdown! And the kick is blocked.